Hello and welcome to the History of. I'm Richard.
I'm Gary.
And this is our final video for our cruise around the UK. It was a fantastic cruise. Our final destination is
Bergen, Norway.
Indeed. We're at the port. I thought this was funny because it has Wilhelm in it. And if you're all familiar what Wilhelm is, look up the Wilhelm scream. Bergen, it's H-A-V-N. Haven. Norwegian. This is the touristy area. And that's the thing about these Viking cruises is they take you to the touristy stuff, which is okay with me. I don't have any problem with that.
Yeah.
And there's a history behind these buildings. I do remember them saying that they had burned.
Yeah.
And these aren't the originals.
They're recreations.
Yeah, they had to basically rebuild.
But it's the iconic look.
Of
Dale
course.
of Norway. I really tried to convince Richard to get one, but he just could not stand the idea. These were like several $100s for a sweater. So that's not up Richard's alley to spend that kind of money on a sweater.
Yeah.
But that's why we can keep taking these trips.
Yep. I just thought that was fascinating. This was a McDonald's.
Yeah.
McDonald's with a sandwich called the El Mako in Norway. And this we took it's called funicular?
The funicular up to the top. It was really cool
top
because
of the mountain. Because
at Bergen you can see the 7 mountains up at the top of this point. And that was really cool. And it's like, we could see pretty far in all directions. And it was quite beautiful to look at. We also wanted to go up to play with the cashmere goats. So we're up in the forest. We just took the funicular up.
That right there.
And there's Bergen. You can see our ship is over there. There we go.
Wow, that Royal Caribbean ship is so much bigger.
I'm glad ours isn't that big.
That's probably, they had kids on that one, right?
Yep.
Entertain those kids. So as I'm looking out in Bergen, I'm looking at these houses right here, and from my perspective, standing up at they look like doll houses, which means this whole town is fake. A little bit of information about the goats, and so it's all foresty up there on the mountain, and the whole time we were there, we were looking for the goats, and we're looking for the goats. Looking for the goats.
And looking for the goats.
And we finally had to ask somebody, and they said that the goats are around. But I had a feeling that the goats were, because when we were going up the funicular, I was looking out the window, and I happened to see a bunch of goats.
Which I didn't
on the
see.
side. I saw these goats, and I thought, oh, how cute. And those are probably the goats that we were supposed to be seeing at the top, but they just happened to not be there at the time, so kind of annoying. And I thought this was funny because
Max fart.
And then we walked around the village.
We did a lot of walking here. We had a lot of time to actually really freely explore the area, which was nice.
This was pretty cool in that it's a sign for the crosswalk, but it's a very specific image of a man with a hat.
Oh, yeah.
And then that was pretty cool, the pride colors for the crosswalk.
Yeah, we have one of those in Long Beach, so it was kind of cool to see that it's done somewhere else, too.
Yeah.
This was cool because this was a monument to labor.
Oh.
Labor over time. So, being that we're very proud workers and we believe in the labor movement, it was cool to see a monument to that.
Yeah. And I wanted to show this menu because it's a very different type of menu than what we see in the United States. Reindeer, whale.
Yeah.
Wild. So, what did Gary do?
I got a whale burger.
Yep. A whale burger. I took a picture of the mustard and the ketchup because I just wanted to show the differences. All right. We are in Norway, and Gary is going to try a whale burger. Let's take a look at it. That's the whale. Looks very thick. Looks like an actual hamburger. There we go.
I mean, it is mammal, so.
How does it smell first?
I don't really smell much other than the lettuce and the mayo.
Okay. What is your impression of a whale burger?
It actually kind of makes me think of mushroom, like a portobello mushroom.
Oh, interesting. Okay. So would you recommend a whale burger?
Yeah. I like mushrooms and I like portobello.
All right. So if you want a whale burger, go to Norway.
All right, it's Richard's turn to try my burger. The
Okay.
whale burger.
So the first thing is it has that smell of seafood animals that I don't like. So that's the first start. Okay, here we go. I'm just gonna eat this very small portion right here. Good thing I brought this water. Maybe the fries will.
I love you. At least you tried it.
Yeah, at least I tried it. It was pretty gross.
I will say that it was a lot of food and it was very overwhelming, and so it's like I couldn't finish it.
It was overwhelming.
Yeah, it was just too much food.
Too much food? Oh,
Yeah.
It wasn't the flavor wasn't overwhelming?
No, I don't believe I had a problem with the flavor. It definitely was unique, but I don't think I had an issue with it. I could have dealt with it being a smaller patty.
Yeah. Taking a picture at one of the shops with our many trolls.
And that was a
Castles.
fort.
A fort?
Fort or tower of some kind.
We were on that tour and we went to that church and they had that underground thing.
Right.
Whole thing underground. It was fascinating.
I think we're going to drive past the gay bar. How warped all the buildings are.
This corporation in order to share the cost of the trading in the Northern Europe and also to share the benefits, the incomes of the trading of the Northern Europe. If we take a look at the map of the Europe, we can see that we have Germany in the center. Okay, we have Germany here, and on the northeast.
We're heading on back to the ship now. This is a time when Gary is in the hot tub. Maybe not, because they close at 10, right? The hot tub?
Oh, yeah, because we can still be out. Yeah, they closed at
So
8.
what are you doing? Because I recorded this because it's nighttime. It is 10:45 p.m. in Bergen, Norway. It's basically still daylight. It's crazy. So now it's the next day. So we're on the bus. Oh, Gary, did you want to tell the drama about the time that they wanted us to get up and off the boat?
Okay, so a little backstory is that my complaint with our trip through Europe, ending in Paris the previous year, we had to get up at like 5 in the morning to be out at 6 so that way we could be at the airport for an early morning flight, which meant we didn't get to have breakfast at the hotel. It was kind of miserable, and I didn't like being rushed and since we didn't get back from our evening at the Eiffel Tower until like 2 in the morning, we didn't really get to sleep. in planning this trip, I was insistent on us getting to leave as late as possible. So our flight was not going to be until noon. I think it was noon. And so we would have to check into the airport by 9-10 o'clock. That made sense, right? 2 to 3 hours before. They had us up at 7 and out on the bus at 8. We had to be out of our room by 7, which was still early, but not as bad as having to be out at 5. And they kept trying to get me to change the flights, and that's going to become apparent when we get to Paris. And I was just adamant I did not want to have to get up. Because there were people who were having to get up at 2 o'clock in the morning.
I have a feeling that they were trying to warn Gary what the issue was with changing the time. And I don't think they were making it clear.
They didn't make it clear. Yeah. And I kept telling them my insistence was I wasn't going to get up earlier. So they needed to book later flights. And they were not listening to me. I wouldn't have minded if we'd have been at Paris and that we'd have had to wait a longer layover and taken a later flight out of Paris. But they were insistent. They kept wanting us to take these earlier and earlier flights. And I was just adamant. I wasn't doing that again. That was such a mess the last time. And seeing the people who had to be out of their rooms at 2 o'clock in the morning waiting to get on the bus to the airport, that certainly would not have been us. I put my foot down. We were not going to do that. What got me annoyed was, now here's the drama that Richard is talking about. We paid for first class. And part of paying for the first class was being able to have the first class lounge. They wanted us at the airport at 9, but then they weren't going to actually let us into the airport until 10 o'clock. They wanted us to stay as a group with the Viking people for an hour just in, not really the lobby, in the foyer of the airport before they would check us in. And I was adamant that, we had access to the first class lounge that would have been much more comfortable. And there would have been food, and there would have been TV, and there would have been charging stations, and there would have been comfortable chairs, rather than the benches that they wanted us to sit on in this crowded area. And since we'd paid for it, I wanted to get in. And so they weren't going to let us get our tickets. And I put my foot down and said, no, you're going to get us in now because this is what we paid for. Otherwise, there was no need to have us rush off the boat at 8 o'clock. They could have had us leave at 9 o'clock and gotten us there at 10 o'clock if they weren't going to let us in till 10.
Yeah.
So ultimately, I won.
But also, there really wasn't an explanation as to why they wouldn't let us go through.
Yeah, they were not very
because clear. One person just made this vague excuse like, oh, well, you have to stay with the group. But then another person at the airport said, no, come with me. So we went with her, and they were just like, do, because we had our tickets already, right?
No, they had to print our tickets.
Oh, well, something like that. It's like, well, then just print the ticket. So what were we waiting for if all you had to do was print the ticket? And so that's all we had to do was go up and get our tickets printed, and then we went through. That's all we had to do. I don't know why they were making us wait.
But once we finally did it and got into the lounge, we were able to sit back, relax.
As you can see here.
It's like, if you're going to make us go early, this is the thing with the trip with Paris. It's like, we at least had the first class lounge that even though we had to be there so early and we missed the breakfast at the hotel, at least we were able to eat a really nice breakfast in the lounge.
Yeah.
I will say that it is the benefit to Viking is they call it business class. You have access to all the features, and the tickets are incredibly reasonably priced compared to if you bought them on your own. But I think that's part of the thing is that they buy only these really, really early flights. So it's like that's the kicker. If you want to fly when you want to fly, you're probably going to have to pay more.
And then we got on the flight. It went from Bergen to Paris.
Électronique n'est pas autorisé. Nous vous recommandons de lire la notice de sécurité placée devant vous et vous rappelons qu'en cas d'évacuation, vous devrez laisser tous vos bagages. Ladies and gentlemen.
And we got food. It was too spicy for me, so I didn't even eat it. I just ate the bread and drink it. But of course it had to be spicy because everything has to be spicy these days.
Yeah, it was spicy and it was seafood.
Oh, was that? Yeah.
It was all seafood.
Spicy
all
and seafood. Would you like to explain why the people were trying to convince you that the time change was not good?
Okay. So I kept reading that we were going from gate 2 to gate 3. So I kept thinking, well, we're just going from one gate to the next gate. And they kept saying, well, we need 2 hours between each flight. And I kept thinking...
he was looking at it like, it's just right there. Like that. That's what he kept saying. It's just right there. But they didn't correct him on that. And that was the problem. They never corrected him.
Never once did they say that I was wrong, that's not, that, or say, hey, you should really take a look at the map and see how the map or anything looks. And so I just kept seeing that gate 2, gate 3, or gate 4 or 5 or whatever it was. But it was like, it just sounded like it was going from one gate to the next gate. And so I was like...
Next to each other.
Next to each other. And I kept saying that. Oh, we're just going to be right next to each other. Why do I need 2 hours to go from one gate to the next gate? That just seemed ridiculous. And nobody, not a single person corrected me on this. We had 45 minutes. And first of all... We got delayed landing in Paris because it was so hot, the plane couldn't land. Yeah. So we actually had to do a whole nother cycle. So that added an extra hour in the air. And then when it finally landed, it cut our time even shorter. Yeah. It turns out we were wrong. We were going from our terminal. We had to go clear to the other side of the airport. And that meant taking all these weird shuttles. So we were literally running.
We were running.
Like chickens with our heads cut off.
And it was so funny because when we realized that, we're like running and we had to take a bus. We had to take a shuttle bus to another terminal. And I think everybody else was in the same boat. And there were people screaming, like, I have to get to my plane. I have to get there now. And they're like, we can't do anything. There's no bus.
You know, we
I'm like, it's like you're yelling at these people, but there's no bus. So it's not like they could do anything about it.
Right. We were not participatory in the yelling. We realized that this was on us.
Oh,
me.
It was stressing out so much.
Richard is so looking at me like, oh my God.
I was like, God damn it.
Yeah.
But when we got to the terminal, we were like, we ran to one gate and then they said, oh no, they changed the gate. And we're like, oh my God. So then we had to run and oh my God, we were running and running. I think I got to a point where I just couldn't run anymore.
Yeah. And then when we got to the actual gate, then they had problems with getting us checked in. I'm like panicking over this. It's like I'm exhausted from having just ran.
But that's the thing though, is like we ran there and they were still checking in the first class. We were like, oh my God, they're not even done. And we're standing there and we're like, and the guy's standing there like, what's wrong? Why are you huffing and puffing like this?
We run from the other side.
We thought we were late.
We were really panicking that we were going to have missed our flight.
Yeah, it was crazy.
But, you know.
But we made it.
Once we got there, we got on.
And then it was like, whew.
I will say that I would always prefer this at the end of the trip than at the beginning of the trip. Because at least it's like, if we got stranded, it's like, oh, what are we going to do? We've already enjoyed our trip. We haven't missed our trip.
A picture of the first class cabin. They always include these little bags.
I love this bag better than the one that the Delta One gave us the previous year. The little leather bag.
And then what's inside the bag? Very nice stuff. Socks and all this little cool stuff.
I've actually worn the socks. They're actually pretty decent.
And then our first class cabins and first class dining.
Just
a gorgeous picture of the clouds. I just thought it was just absolutely gorgeous. So that's it.
Back to reality.
That is our adventure in the UK. It was amazing.
Yeah, that was an important trip to do. I'm really glad we did it.
Yeah, it was expensive, but it was totally worth it.
If you think about it, though, it was our 15th anniversary. I turned 45. That's a big year. This year, I finished my credential program, cleared that. So it was, kind of like what we did when we did Japan. We took a big trip. This is our biggest trip ever.
Biggest and longest.
So, it was rewarding.
Yep. It was a fantastic trip. It was wonderful. Everything about it was wonderful. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. And if you like all of our videos, click subscribe. Thank you for watching. I'm Richard.
I'm Gary.
Bye.
Bye.